What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Fight With Him podcast. Today's guest is founder and CEO of Home Sweet Home Restoration, Mr. Brenton Todd. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. This is
man.
it's exciting.
Yeah. So it's your first time doing this. We're just talking about it a little bit off air. You're saying it's your first time doing this, so you guys please support, show some love, and let's dive right into it, man. Tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to where you're at now.
Yeah, so not to go too deep, but I was born in Winston.
Go deep.
I was born in Winston-Salem, a small town in North Carolina. It's come up pretty much, and raised in Rockingham and Goldsboro, North Carolina, small farm town locations, and old state. And I was raised by high standards, just really high standards from grandparents to parents. Just the need to get to a high standard, high quality production of life is just it's embedded in our family.
What does that mean, high standard?
So a great example, like my father, Mark Todd, currently working with Electric Cities. He's leading safety development across the country right now.
Yeah.
Just really high standard guy. A very do-it-yourself guy, but when it came to do-it-yourself, like he would go in and learn everything the right way.
Sure.
The right way, without cutting corners, quality service, like for himself and for others. And just seeing that service to others, that led into the next step, which is about where we're at now. But another example is my mom. My mother's Donna Ott, operating in hospitals. She's the chief nurse in Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, nice.
She's been doing that for like 30 years, and just hearing her talk about work and hearing her friends talk about the standards she's hold.
Yeah.
And then those standards coming back home when we were being raised, just really, really high standards, never cut corners.
So what did little Brenton do growing up? Like, what were you into?
Everything. So I was an ADHD kid. So like there wasn't anything I could lock myself down with.
Yeah.
I played every sport, even if it was just 1 year. Never really locked into any sports that I wanted to do. I really liked baseball a lot. I think I did that the most.
Yeah.
But I was real little.
Yeah.
I tried everything: skateboarding, snowboarding, skiing. I've been skydiving. Like there was nothing I didn't want to do. So it was just fun to get out. I definitely went through my rebellious stage in high school.
Yeah.
We were raised in a church community. It's the Bible Belt down there.
Yeah.
I was raised in Southern Baptist, and high school was kind of like my rebellious stage. It was a point in time. I was probably say the darkest time of my life. Wasn't that I wasn't having fun, but that might have been the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a buddy. Talk to me a little bit about that. I have a sister-in-law that moved out to Tennessee. Her and my brother-in-law both live out there. They love it. There's nothing, but they're California, born and raised. And they're in the Bible Belt now, and they love it. But I had another buddy that's from Tennessee that actually moved to. We've actually had him on the podcast, Nathan Ring, and his dad was a televangelist, and he was one of the most popular preachers on TV, and he grew up that way. And he was saying when he was in high school and college, they would go to church every Sunday, but they'd be hammered from Saturday night. And they would have to go to church because it would make the preacher look bad if your kids aren't there. So him and his buddies were all PKs, preacher's kids, for you guys that don't know. And it was just for show. He's like, we never had a relationship with Jesus. It was never like genuine. It was just for show because it would make my father look bad. So I had to be there. And he'd be hammered with sunglasses on, just hung over. But he'd have to be there because of who his dad was. So how was that for you? I'm sure with the high standards, your family was probably respected in the community, and you guys were always at church. And so how was that? Like, when did you ever come to a genuine relationship with Jesus?
Yeah, so I'd say that's spot on, especially for like most people in the Bible Belt that grew up in that, especially those with a lot of overlap with faith. I think that it boils down to like the simple fact is there's a lot of that ingrained in you, almost like a structure. It's almost like school where you're trying to focus on doing the homework. The homework's obligated, you got to be there. And so that kind of stems this want to have fun, this want to rebel it just naturally starts to come about, because this is like, it's almost dictated to you as someone growing up in that area, that church is a standard. And, when you go through your rebellious stage, you want to break standards.
100%.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was identical almost. We got together on Fridays and Saturdays, and so through the week it was just hanging out and having fun. But Saturdays and Sundays, if I could get my hand on a beer or two, or we would buy weed from whoever had it in the area,
Yeah.
and then show up to church, on Sunday morning, and happy to worship. But there was always that stickler in the back. So it was almost like a playing card and more of a face than a reality for us. For me, like, the real turning to God was, I knew God. I always knew God.
Yeah.
And there was a real awakening for me through bouncing around several different states growing up. And that was my own choice. It wasn't, my parents weren't moving around. That was me. Where I realized I was just coming to a dead end. The life I was living wasn't really there. And I started asking for help. And I specifically remembered that we can talk to God. We can talk directly to him. And so I started asking for help, and just for signs to be shown, and an opportunity to come back to California was presented to me. I first came out in about 2011.
And was this after high school?
This was after high school,
Okay.
right after graduation, came out here.
Yeah.
And then I had an opportunity to come back. And I prayed on it and prayed on it. And it was about a 2-week period where I just had to contemplate. And is this really what's right, going back? And ultimately, it boiled down to, like, this was a sign from God. And so I took the plunge, came back out here when I was, I think 21 or 22. And immediately I joined the Resolve Church down in San Diego. It's shrunk since then, but the Resolve is an Acts 29 program.
Yeah.
And believes that, Acts stops on 28. But it's the belief that Acts never really stops. The evangelizing doesn't stop. It's this, we're living Acts 29. And I just committed myself to it. I almost made it like a daily discipline, like to be involved, and not just to be a part of the church, but to be involved in the service of the church. And that started to introduce me more and more, I think, to the words of God, not just from the book, but from himself.
But to go back, there's so many stories you hear of people praying on things and not getting answers, or getting answers. How did you know that moving back to California, or coming back to California was the right thing, and that it was from God? Like, what was that sign, or that aha moment?
Yeah. So have you ever heard the term, like, may the bridges I burn light my path?
Yeah.
So I burned a lot of bridges. I burned
Back
a
home.
lot of bridges. Yeah.
Okay.
And from state to state, from Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina. I just struggled. I wanted to live Brenton's life. I didn't really want to live it for anybody else, even God.
And how did you burn bridges, if you don't mind me asking?
Just goofing off, partying through, jobs and small time jobs. And, I got let go from quite a few jobs when I was younger.
Sure.
Nothing big, nothing career worthy. But when the jobs started to run out, and the realization that my future was starting to disappear,
Yeah.
there was a real humbling moment there. And I think the biggest thing was, when I was all the way down that low, there was a very clear discernment from God.
Yeah.
And he made himself very present. And the places that he was most relevant was in the conversation around getting back out here. I think it was his will for me to be here when I first came out. And I was still rebellious, so I went back. And this was
You came out to live, or just to vacation?
I came out to live originally.
Okay.
I was down in San Diego. I was working on the Midway Museum downtown.
Yeah.
And having a blast, and living with my brother and his fiance at the time. And life was good. Life was a lot of fun. I had this weird chattering monkey on my shoulder that was telling me, get back to home, go back to your friends. You miss that. You miss that enjoyment. And so I did, but through tribulation, I realized, like, that was not me listening to God, and he opened that door back up. He made it very relevant that I needed to be here.
Yeah, that's and that's what essentially the question I was asking, because people we're kind of in a tough spot now where we're like, and I've talked about this on the show previous episodes or years ago, where like my wife right now would get up and leave to Tennessee. If it was like, yep, if I came
Oh
home
yeah.
today and I was like, hey, we're leaving, she'd be like, okay, cool, let's go. But I don't have. I've prayed about it. I've read the Bible. Like I'm trying to get this clear, just either a word or doors closing, open doors, opportunities, something, and it feels like nothing's going on. So to me, it's like, hey, stay here, figure it out. There's still, and I've said this before, that it feels like there's still some unfinished business here. Communities here, we're more rooted in our church. There's still things that are happening here that I want to be a part of, I guess. And there's certain battles, and I was just talking about this the other day. There's certain battles that I feel like we need to fight. I just need more discernment on which battles are mine to fight, because it's not just me now. I have a wife, I have 3 kids. Like I'm essentially dragging them along in this, in being the head of the household. I need to make sure that like what we're doing is right. I love the podcast. The podcast feels right. But just because it feels right doesn't mean that it is right. And so I love that you said that you just had something telling you like, hey, go back, but that probably wasn't. I mean, you tell me, it's your story. Was that from God, do you think, or was that just you being selfish, wanting to go back home because it's what you knew, and it's what was comfortable?
That's a great question. To put it simply, it's been an 8-year commitment
Yeah.
to get like
Yeah.
the total discernment. Yes, this is God.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, it was a leap of faith.
Yeah.
It was hearing that this was an opportunity to rebuild my future that I was losing by my own hands. So I jumped on that, and I committed God as my priority. And I think that
Mm.
that was what helped me to continue to discern those little things like,
But how'd you do
hey, move
that?
here, move there.
Committing to God. What does that look like to you? What did it look like to you?
So it's more or less like a term of my life, like an
Mm-hmm.
uncompromisable standard. And it wasn't up until the point I came back out. And so what the change was, I guess you would say it's like a context shift. Like I commit everything, the food that I ate for the day, like
Yeah.
the sleep that I got that night, the work that I was able to put in, the hours, my paycheck, even the downs were all from God. And I always committed that, like always give him the credit. And in doing that, I felt like I was getting closer.
Yeah.
And in getting closer to God, you hear him more. You're able to.
Yes.
And so I just put him first in all things. Even when I was falling short, even when I was failing, instead of relying on myself or going to my bodily wants, like that homesickness that took me away from California to begin with,
Yeah.
I would commit myself to going to him, in either in prayer or in community with those around me.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, ultimately, it boiled down. The last time I got a sign from God that was very clear cut was just recently, actually. It was last year, around this time. I was employment with a man. I won't say any names. I'm not
Yeah.
not trying to
Yeah.
hurt
Sure.
anybody, but I was employed with a man that the promise was that we would be working together, that we would open a company and be running it, and I would
Yeah.
have ownership. And through several months of employment under this guy, more and more it became relevant that this man was taking advantage of me.
Yeah.
He was utilizing my knowledge in what I do to basically have me run, operate, and function his company, his new company,
Sure.
with no intention of ever really giving away ownership. And that was really hard. And there was a moment in that I started to pray. I left that man, and this is how that happened. So it wasn't like I can't just drop this. I didn't have money to save up to go sit on my hands for a couple months and figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
I had to figure it out right then and there. And I think that's very relevant to a lot of people nowadays. Like, there's no time to wait. You need to move. And so it was very hard. I stuck it out through that situation as long as I could. And I started to pray and I started to focus. And the thought started going through my head: do I move back down to San Diego? Get back started down there? Do I look to go back to school? Do I find something else? And moving
And
out of California.
how old were you at this time?
So this was last year. I was
Okay.
31.
Okay.
31. So I'm 32 now. I'll be 33 in a month. So yeah, no, even the thought of moving out of California came up. And everybody wants to move out of
Yeah,
California.
everyone's leaving.
And so that really started to peg like, what's right. But instead of wanting to go off of my bodily wants, what was going through my brain, I continued to just stay in prayer. Funny story. While I was working with this man, I was trying to build relationships and referral partners in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just cold calling people. And I decided when I started this with this man, even, no matter who he was, I was going to commit God as a priority in the company. And so in my voicemails, these cold calls to people, I would make sure that they understood that was a part of who I was, and God bless, and we're a Christian company, and so on and so forth. And through that, I met my current business partner, and about a month into working with him, just as a referral partner, he called me one night, and he just let me know that God had spoken to him, and that if I wasn't where I was currently, he would do the exact same thing with me under real ownership, real partnership,
Yeah.
in a blink of an eye. And, I shelved that because I wasn't quite ready to believe that I was being taken advantage of. And then, it was just about 30 days later. I was really in prayer. I was actually on my knees next to my bed. And I knew I couldn't do what I was doing anymore. And so I called that man. And that man's James Shute.
Mm-hmm.
And so James, were you serious about that when you called me and told me that, man? Don't mess with my heart. That was his response. Don't mess with my heart, man. And we just kicked it off. And from there, we developed like a real brotherhood in Christ. And that was really like the moment, the anchoring moment that I heard God telling me, not only do I want you to be right here and doing what you're doing, but as long as you put me first, I will continue to open the door for you to move forward. Here's the next door.
That's a trip, bro. Because one of our sermons, not this Sunday, but the Sunday before, was about open doors. And I had heard the week prior, I was on social media, and it was one of those videos where the guys are like, don't stop this video. God wants you to hear this. He's about to open doors, da-da-da. And I was like, all right, whatever. It's just a social media post. It's just on my feed. Means nothing. And I'm not like the pastor's best friend or anything, so I don't know what the next sermon is. So that was like on a Thursday or Friday. Get to church on Sunday. Sermon's about open doors. The series is about possessing your land or your promised land, right, that God has for you. And then the sermon that literally a couple days later was about open doors. Then the following week, there's another video. This lady posted something about open doors and blessings and this and that. And when you're struggling with something, you always think it's going to be financial, but it doesn't have to be financial. An open door can be an opportunity to go, not preach to someone, but to love on them, right? It could be an opportunity for business. It could be an opportunity for work. It could be whatever, right? Because now, being like at least what I went through, and I haven't talked about it a ton since we just started recording, but just to brush over, I got let go of a job that a friend had given me in February, and that's why the podcast wasn't around, and that's why we weren't recording. But I got let go in February, at the last week of February, and I was really praying about it, and I called my wife. I said, hey, babe, I got let go. We kind of knew it was coming because of some things that were going on at work. And I called her, and the first thing she told me, she's like, oh, it's a bummer, but at least you can do your podcast now. And I'm like,
Damn.
what? Like, she would normally be like freaking out, like, what are we going to do? We don't have money. We got to move out. We can't afford California. And one of the first things she says was like, hey, well, you can do your podcast now. And I'm like, all right, that's weird. And so I started a couple months later, I started recording. You'll be our third episode back or fourth episode back since we've started again. And so it's like I said, it just feels right. And obviously there's ways to monetize it. Well, it's a whole nother conversation, but it's sometimes I feel like you need to, not to sound cliche, but hit rock bottom for you to have like a heart change, or have like, to know, like, hey, you need to put God first in everything. Even if you're in certain situations where it may not be the best, right? And not that you put yourself in those situations, but not everyone's a believer. Not everyone has your same faith. So like, how do you deal with that in the workforce when you deal with clients or maybe referral partners that aren't believers or don't hold the same type of standards that you do, with love? How do you handle that with love without smacking them? Because sometimes it's nice to smack someone.
Yeah. I mean, so I'll start by saying not every client is servable.
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah,
it's beyond the line of help, and I don't think that that's I can't help them. I think it's they're more unsupportable,
mm,
so they're closed off to it. Um, as far as like how do I incorporate it? You know, tough clients, love in the hard times. I just remember why I'm doing this.
yeah,
And it really boils down to the core of, why we're doing this. And so, I don't have this company because of my own abilities.
yeah,
If I
yeah.
left it up to my own hands, I would still be working for someone.
Hmm.
Maybe not even in the industry anymore. I have this because God willed it. And
Yeah.
I always just remember like the main reason that one of the core purposes we started the company was to improve our community, to better our community through the understanding that we have, through the wisdom that we've
Hmm.
gained. And I always just remember that. I tell people all the time, like we are the punching bags of this industry.
Hmm.
We have to be the bad news bearers. Like
Just to clarify, you guys are in the restoration industry. Is
yeah.
that
So
correct?
yeah, we
Is that
do
how you would
fire.
label it?
Yeah, fire, mold, water damage
Okay.
restoration, in interior home damage.
Okay.
We specialize in insurance claims, helping people maintain and manage coverage the right way.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's hard people, and I tell people all the time, we're the punching bags. We're the bearer of the bad news. We have to bring in, hey, we've got to tear up your kitchen. Hey, your flooring has to come up. I know you just did it last year.
Hmm.
And it's very hard to swallow that pill from time to time. Some people get very upset, and
Yeah. Sure.
we just kind of maintain. I call it context. I maintain a context, and the context being when I'm serving my clients is that they get the best service that they can get. Until they become unsupportable, I will do that. And yeah, they might get anxious and want to ask us a bunch of questions. How do I refine it so they don't have to ask so many questions?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
helps me. But yeah, just boiling back to remembering what it's about. It's not about the dollar that's coming from the project at the end. It's about being able to truly help people get their lives back.
Hmm.
There's, I think, very few people can say that they have an investment more valuable in their life, their entire life, than the house that they buy.
Yeah. Sure.
And to let that fall apart is a part of your life. You're letting just fall apart. If we can help people get through that and not cost them an arm and a leg, or help them fight a carrier that may be trying to skirt a gray area
Yeah.
and get them denial, and we're able to just maintain coverage for them and benefit and bless those people, that's all we need.
So you were to backtrack just a little bit. You were in the restoration industry working for someone else. You got a call from a referral partner, James, and you guys end up opening this together. How is that jump, or how is that leap of faith taken? Because you,
Yeah.
at least in my understanding, you hadn't been an entrepreneur beforehand, correct?
No.
And then you're like, okay, let's do this. How was that leap of faith? How did you kind of navigate through
Yeah.
that?
A plethora of sacrifices.
Yeah.
Most formidable was, I had to sacrifice my independence for a time.
In what
The
way?
abrupt change from working with this man and, going over and working with James, I had to sacrifice my independence entirely. Like, I actually had to ask a friend for help and stay in their garage and for a short period of time while we built this thing up and got to a stable place. I had to face some harsh taxing with the way that I was employed with the last gentleman. And not to dial in a long story, but ultimately it was just be careful how you're employed.
Yeah.
But I was not knowledgeable of these things. So, I have a very hard tax year this year, and not just that we have a new company. Thankfully,
Mm-hmm.
we've done really well there, but I have a really hard personal tax year this year that I could never seen before because of the way I was employed with that man.
Mm-hmm.
Had to face that. Diving into this thing, basically knowing I don't have any money for these debts and these problems that have accrued through this sacrifice, but trusting that the Lord would deliver. Every step of the way, every deadline has been met, every
Mm-hmm.
need has been answered, and I continue to thank Him. Like I have problems.
Yeah, sure.
Everyone does.
Yeah.
But and I think this is the core difference. How do we handle those hard knocks? It Everybody has hard knocks. Everybody needs to be brought down to the rock
Yeah.
bottom to be able to be humbled enough to really give their all to God.
Yeah.
It's just different for those who know that those hard knocks are going to be provided for.
Yeah.
Like I know God's going to take care of me.
Isn't
And
that a
so those
trip?
hard knocks don't hit so hard where somebody's like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent next month. Hey man, God's going to provide. And yeah, the worry is always there. That human
Yeah.
worry is always there. But if I just give that worry up to God, man, every single time those concerns have popped up,
I was just
he's
talking
revealed
to
that
a
answer.
buddy about that. It's so weird because we're at a stage, obviously, I'm sure a lot of you guys know I do digital marketing. And I
He
was,
does it for our company. Check
yeah,
out our
yeah.
website. It's amazing.
I was scared to get back into it because I was like, it's what I know. But I have this overwhelming sense of peace knowing that God's going to provide. And it is the weirdest thing because I've never had that. I've always been like, yeah, God, you take 90%. Let me still control this part of my life or this part of my life. And it's like, no. You got to give everything, every little bit to God, everything. And I used to make fun of people that would pray like when they were driving or pray whatever. And now I'm like doing it out loud and being like, okay, who can I pray for? I got a 30-minute drive to this, either to this meeting or to this event or to the podcast recording. I'm like, who can I pray for? Like now when I get into the office, whether it's early in the morning or now that we have football in the morning, I'll get in a little bit later, mid morning. And it's like I at least read a chapter in the Bible. And I'm going through the New Testament right now. So I'll read a chapter and then I'll pray for my clients, which are you, James, and one other one at the moment. And I pray that what I'm doing is actually benefiting you guys and giving you guys calls and giving you guys website traffic. And I'm like, I pray that what the marketing efforts are paying off in this way. Because that's what you do it for, right? You're essentially a content creator and you're trying to get leads to that company. That's all you're really doing. And when someone sees your website or someone sees your Google business profile, they know the services that you provide. So then in turn, they're going to call you when they need you, or they're going to have you in the back of their mind so that when they do run into something, they call you. And so that's the hopes of it. And I've had to change that aspect of my thinking or those habits to get better results. Like after this, I have to go back, edit an episode, do a little bit more work, post a blog post. It's not like, oh yeah, you just do the podcast and you sit around and do nothing. Like, no, I don't have money to pay an editor or to fix a sound engineer to be like, hey, fix this little buzz. Like right now, we're restarting this and it's kind of on the ground floor again, but it feels this is what I'm most passionate about. I love running my mouth. I love talking. I love conversations. And I was telling you right before we started recording, like I want to have just a conversation and the cameras are recording, the lights are on, the microphones are being recorded. It's just like a fly on the wall. But like Brenton and Manny are just having a conversation. This is what it's about. It's a little bit informative, but it's mainly like your story. And that's what I want to be able to monetize one day. And hopefully we'll do it soon. But it's just so fun to do it because I think people need to hear stories. People need to hear your background, how you turn to God. Like they need tools and ways to do things because there could be a listener that is going through or went through something very similar to what you're going through. Like, how do you go from being an employee and being like, I have no care in the world because all I got to do is clock in and clock out. I'm good. And we'll do it again tomorrow. That's fine. But now you got to worry about taxes, paying employees, making sure that everything gets done right. All the back end nuances that people don't think about. I say it all the time in athletics, like especially in fighting. People judge you or see you for 15 minutes up in that cage. They don't see the preparation. They don't see the behind the scenes, the diet, the schedule, the training camp, the arguments with your wife, why you're gone so much. They don't see any of that. They get to see you perform and then they judge you based on that performance. But they don't see any. And in the business world, it's the same thing. People judge you on the clients you have, how your website looks, what services do you provide. They don't see all the, like, I just did an AI certification course through the Small Business Development Center. And it's like, it was cool. We learned a lot because now, unfortunately, AI is going to be infiltrating or benefiting the digital marketing space. And it's awesome, right? So why, instead of fighting it, why not use it? Right? Like, it's like when Uber came up, a bunch of taxi drivers were pissed off. It's like, why? Why not utilize that? It's just another platform. Utilize it to benefit you and your clients. And so that's how I'm looking at things now. And you have to shift your mindset, right? And I think it's always been really, really hard for me to put God first because I'll get a little bit of benefits, but then I'll get complacent. Be like, oh no, I'm good.
Yeah.
You know, God did that. Cool. Now he's handing the baton off to me. But it's never that. God is never handing you the baton. He wants you to run behind him. You have to be a follower. You have to let
That's
him
right,
lead.
yeah.
You can't just be like, all right, God, move over, bro. Like, you did enough. I got it from here. Like, it doesn't work that way. And I think people don't understand that and don't realize that. One selfish question I want to ask you, just because I've always battled with it and I love having this conversation, is like other faiths, other religions, other beliefs. The same way me and you are sold out for God and we're like, yep, Jesus died for us. He rose again. Like, that's who we worship. He's the Trinity. Like, whatever we want to believe, right? That to us is like what we believe. Muslim, Buddhists, Mormons, whatever, Catholics, they are all sold out as well. They all believe the same thing they believe. And so my question is how do you deal with those conversations if you have friends or family? The only way I know how to do it is just out of love. Not to like be like, oh, bless your heart, you're an idiot. Not that. Just like, okay, let's talk. Let's have a healthy conversation because we can have differences, but let's talk about it. Because I've just now, as I've gotten older, have started to develop, what would be the right word for it? I guess like conflict resolution techniques. Like I was never like that. Like if we wanted to play a video game, we had one TV in the house with one Super Nintendo, and it's like, okay, let's fight. And
You're
whoever
duking it out.
wins, yeah, whoever wins gets to play. It was never like we never got sat down and was like, all right, Brenton, you can play 15 minutes, and then when you're done, Manny can play 15 minutes. So it was never that. It was, hey, let's duke it out. Whoever wins gets to play.
Well, I would tell you now, if it was a Super Nintendo on the line, I'd fight you for like
Yeah,
5 hours.
100%. But yeah, how do you deal with people like that? I
yeah,
just think it's a unique topic.
Yeah, it's incredibly relevant, I think, for people of faith now, especially. Like that question's super powerful. I'd say that not one person ever has all the answers. But and so it's very important to know your audience,
Yeah,
to know who you're talking to, and the first thing that you need to understand is their point of view. If you don't have that, then you might not be the right person to have that conversation with them. But you can still express and live God's love to them. They can still experience our faith from how we live.
yeah, for sure.
But if you don't have the answers, don't just, be a whipped dog and allow them to rule the conversation over you. Invite them. Hey, I don't have the answers.
Yeah,
But why don't you come to church with me or to small groups or to Bible study or Theo 101? Even better, if you really want to bring somebody into like the Christian faith that has a struggle with the faith itself, bring them to Theo 101.
yeah,
This is all factual stuff. It is why the theology is the basis of our belief.
yep,
And I mean, and I love this. When you come into like the evidence is in the pudding, like there is so much evidence of the Christian faith. I mean, and people say, well, how am I supposed to believe in what I can't see? Well, it's there. We think about the greatest example. I think the most common example I use is, think of books. history. We know history to be fact based on multiple different depictions of the same story from different avenues and different time periods. That's how we've been able to know, hey, this really happened without having some kind of physical evidence of it other than writing.
Yeah.
And so when we think about books, we think about the number one most copied book in the world. Well, let's go to number two first. The number two copy book that nobody has any arguments existed was the Iliad. In the, that's about, I don't want to make up numbers, but I know it's in several hundreds. I think it's around 700 copies of the Iliad were made. And we know without a doubt, under those 700 different copies from different depictions of different people at different areas, that the Iliad occurred. The number one most copied book from different people in different periods of time, different locations, different regions is the Bible. This isn't like they beat them out by a couple hundred or tens. They beat them out by several thousand. Like the gap from the Iliad to the Bible is like the jump from 80 to, or like BC to AD. Like it's tremendous. And I mean, like that's one. Like how can you argue the Bible? And people say, well, how do we know the Bible hasn't been tampered with? Read all the different versions. If you really have a hard time with that, like read all the versions. Like there's a lot of common ground. Yeah, there's some certain things that are different, but it's mostly in wording. And a lot of like some people, there's changes in understanding. But for the most part, the Bible is consistent all the way through and through. We also have a lot of physical evidence in the world. So I like to talk on actual evidence. Like that's my bread and butter. Black and white, make it factual. Bam.
Yeah.
You can't argue with facts.
And did you sought out that information on your own? Like you did the research?
Yeah, so I started in a Theo 101 class in the Resolve down in San Diego. I believe they still offer that Theo 101. If they don't, that's a terrible tragedy because it's amazing program. I think everybody that wants to explore God from the outside or within should do a Theo class. It's just amazing to understand what grounds our basis in our belief.
Yep.
And I think it's a great place for people who challenge the faith to go and have their challenges met. Like, don't think of it like, hey, I want to go and prove you wrong. Think about it as a conversation like we're having now.
Yeah.
To go and discuss it. Go and debate it. You don't believe something that teacher is teaching? Converse about it. Have a conversation.
Nice. Yeah. My pops always told me that there's always someone better than you and someone worse. And so I think it's the same way. Like, go seek advice. There's always going to be someone that knows the Bible more, that knows the word more. Like, go ask them questions, learn from them, and it's only going to equip you to gain more knowledge and get better. And I love what you said about, the closer you get to God, the easier it's going to be to hear from him, because
absolutely.
That's what I'm struggling with now is like, if we're going to move to Tennessee, like that's a big move. It's not like hey, we're going to move down the street. We got to hire movers and then we'll just go. Right? I've never hired movers. I don't know why I said that, but I want to because I hate moving. But I think I told my wife, like, if we're volunteering at church, if we're in our word every day, if we're loving on people, if we're praying, the closer we are to God, and that's going to force us to be closer. It's going to be easier to hear, to be like, God, what is your plan for our life? Like, what do you want us to do? Where do you want us to go? What direction do you want us having going into? Because I think for sure I'm probably doing too much. Like I'm trying to run my business. I'm doing the podcast again. I'm coaching high school football. And it's like one of those things has got to go. And it's not going to be my business. It's definitely not going to be the podcast. So the only answer is coaching. Like I have to scale back, just because when you do anything, you have to obviously give it your best effort, right? And you got to be completely sold out. And it's not fair to players that are there, that are looking to you for guidance and for coaching, and you're not giving it 100% because you're thinking about a client, or you're thinking about a podcast guest, or you're thinking about editing. Like that's not right. It's not right.
Like how can someone get 100% from you if you're not giving 100%? 100%. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so let's get back into, you start the company.
Yeah.
And you are now an entrepreneur. What was that like, starting that, knowing that like you're responsible for yourself and you got to hold yourself accountable and you got to do things. And obviously you found success, and it doesn't come with what kind of sacrifices did you have to make to get that success, and like what things did you have to deal with on a daily basis to kind of shift your mindset from being an employee to now being a business owner?
Yeah, so this is gonna sound weird, but I mean, it was like literally carefree.
Yeah.
Like the transition, I knew that I knew the industry. I gave everything to understanding it,
Mm-hmm.
and for years working through several contractors, I put my best effort forward to learn what I could from those people.
Yeah.
Before that last employment that was going south,
Mm-hmm.
before them, I was with a company for about 3.5 to 4 years, and I specifically started in that company. That man was in his garage, so it was kind of like I got to experience building a company with that man, but I didn't
Yeah.
have the responsibility, which was
Sure.
nice. But I started in that company telling that man, my intention is to do my own thing one day, and I intend on getting everything I can from here.
Mm.
And I think that that honesty can sometimes backlash, but my intention and my I think that my context and the delivery to that man spoke to him,
Yeah.
and he stepped out and he invested in me. He knew my intention was one day to step away. Not only did he teach me everything I could possibly know about production and the process of the industry, he also introduced me to a program called the Sterling Men's Weekend, and it doubles as the Sterling Women's Weekend as well. And it's basically just, how do I become the best man that I can be? How do I be the man that I want to be? And I just continued to produce down that road. And then so when the day came that it was time to start the company, I knew what it meant to run the business. I knew what it meant to build the partnerships. I knew the network needed to be there. How am I supposed to do the job? How am I supposed to collect on the job? The stuff I didn't know was specifically the business, like building part.
Yeah.
What papers to sign with this state? Where do I need to file this? What information do I need to have to be able to do this legally? That was the hard part, but like I said, it was literally like a carefree jump. And I think that that all stems from, I had at this point had completely committed myself to whatever God wanted me to do, I was going to do.
Mm.
And I genuinely think that all of the concerns of stepping into that responsibility were just erased because I was doing what he asked me to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot. I was already struggling with my personal finances as an employee. I had no savings. And I knew that going into business ownership, my expenses were just going to skyrocket.
Yeah. For sure.
And it just didn't stop me. I knew that I had the ability to do what I wanted to do,
Mm-hmm.
and I had the ability to learn what I didn't already know. And so I just committed myself to, hey, I don't know how long this door's going to be open. I'm stepping through it.
Yeah.
And I
And so you
followed
took
him.
action.
Yeah.
A
And
lot of
so,
people don't. I think you get
yeah.
halted by the fear of like, there's all this crap that I got to do. There's so much more I'm responsible for, and it holds people back rather than motivating them or pushing them forward.
And those are the lies. Those are the
Yeah.
lies that so many of us follow for.
Yeah.
That's Satan. That's the devil, to put it
Yeah.
bluntly. Like that's his attacks on you. Every time God opens a door for you, don't think that that's going to be a shining light and a comfortable pillow, and you're just
No,
in this
it
zone
gets
of
freaking
comfort.
harder, man.
No,
I had notes, I had goals
yeah,
on my wall, and I had like 5 personal goals, top 5 personal goals, top 5 business goals. One of my goals that was top priority for me at the time was to get an office space. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what I wanted that to look like, or what that was going to be like, or how I was going to do it. And it was because I was working in my garage, and my kids, I'd tell them, hey, imagine dad's not home. Imagine I'm not here for 8 to 10 hours. If you guys need something, go ask mom, leave, like whatever, right? That did not work. I mean, just every 10 to 15 minutes. Hey, dad, I need help with this. Hey, dad, the TV's not connecting to the internet. Hey, dad, we're hungry. Hey, and I'm like, wow, like relax. Let me work. And literally maybe a month, maybe 2 months into me working from home, I had met with James, and I was just like, yeah, this is what I'm doing now, blah, blah, blah. And he was telling me how much he was paying there. And I was like, hey, is there an office space open there? And he goes, I don't know, let me ask the pastor. And he asked them, and there wasn't. And he goes, why don't you just move in here? Like, just work out of here. And I'm like, this is crazy. And then when I got it, I was like, cool, it's something, it's one of my goals I accomplished them, right? And things got harder. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't cush. It wasn't comfortable. It was like, okay, now you have more work. Now he wants to be a client. Now I have to provide more service. Now, it got harder. Now my time was being taken more, which is fine, right? Because it's what I want. I want the company to grow. I want to eventually bring someone on, teach them what we do a good job, and and I love always. I don't know who embedded this into me, but I always told myself like hold yourself accountable before someone else has to. Because if
Mm.
you're holding yourself accountable and you have, like you were saying, high standards, you're gonna perform. You're gonna provide. It may not always be pretty. It may take longer than you wanted to take, but your deadlines and your goals that you have, you're gonna accomplish them. You just got to keep going. Like I just got back into working out, and it makes it easy because we have practice, and part of the practice is in the weight room. So I'm like, I'll just work out in the weight room, and the kids work out. I'll work out with them. There's two sides to that coin. One is I'm getting a workout in. Two is the kids are like, I'm willing to do the things that I'm telling you to do. Like I'm sweating in here just like you guys are. And I'm old and fat. And I'm doing this. Like I'm riding with you.
Yeah, but you're
You
setting
know?
that example. You're being that role model.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
guiding
yeah.
them. But yeah, no, I definitely think that it's very powerful to state that it is not a cush life to follow God.
No, not at all.
The very first curse among men is everything we gain will be through the sweat of our brow. So
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
work for it. But yeah, no, when a door opens, the devil knows that God's opening a door for you. He's gonna attack,
Yeah.
and he's gonna fill your life with lies. And the lies for me were: Am I gonna be homeless? Am I gonna get through the first month? Are these
Yeah.
opening expenses gonna get paid back? Am I gonna just get swallowed by debt? And I just had to tell myself, I know I'm being guided. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be guided into a wolf's den. And trust. And that level, when you're able to really commit to that trust, man, the worries go. And so it was very, like I said again, it was very carefree stepping into
Yeah.
that.
So now that you have the business, how long have you had it officially open?
Yeah, so we opened officially November 23rd of 23.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going on 7-8 months now.
And what have you
Yeah.
noticed that's been different from when you opened it to now, if anything?
I would say the biggest thing is that we're grounding in the community. So one of our overall purposes is to actually make an impact in the community, and to actually serve our community.
Yeah.
And from start, it was we're doing what we can with the clients that we know we already have, and now we're more grounded in the community. There's more people talking about us. We're not popular yet, but I'm sure we will be one day.
Sure.
Hopefully for the right reasons.
Well, I mean, I think when you provide the service, because I've heard you on the phone in the office sometimes, and when you provide the service, the type of service that you provide, I think it's a breath of fresh air. Because I've dealt with previously I was an install manager at an HVAC company, and I've dealt with restoration companies, and they're just like, this is what we want, this is what we're gonna do, cool. And then you hear the conversations they have, and it's very dull, it's very fast, it's very they don't go into detail, they don't try to walk the clients through. They're just like, hey, this is what's gonna happen, and this is how we're gonna do it. Cool, we'll give you a call back. It's not
Yeah.
like it's like they don't care. And I
Yeah.
get it, when you're running a big company, and I'm sure you just got to get to the next call or the next meeting.
It's all about the numbers. The number here, the
Yeah,
number
but
here is the client, almost to the point where the client becomes the number.
but I think a client can tell when you're taking the time and you're explaining things and you're going into detail and saying, "Hey, this is what's probably going to happen next. Here are the next steps. This is what the insurance company is going to say. This is what you should do." Like you're essentially coaching them, and you're walking them through step by step. Like, hey, this is what we need to do in order for you to get serviced right. Like we're gonna fight for you. I keep thinking of that lawyer that's like, "Well, fight for you." Like that's what I feel like you guys are doing when you talk to your guys as customers. There's a sense of like care. Like you guys give a damn. It's not just like, yeah, whatever, you guys are a number. And so it's really cool to witness and I want to encourage you to keep doing that. You know,
Yeah, thank
I
you.
think customers can definitely, when you're transparent like that, people can tell you're not BSing them. It's not a runaround. Like, it's not like, oh, he's just doing this for us because it's a big job. Like, you do it with everyone. And so I think it's really, really cool to see and to witness that. Um, I know you got to get out of here, but where can people find you? Where can they, if they need service, if they want to look you up, plug your website, plug your Google business page. I mean, whatever you got going on,
Yeah,
let them
so
know.
it's very easy to get a hold of us. We're Home Sweet Home Restoration. If you Google Home Sweet Home Restoration, we're based out of Orange County.
Yeah.
We're stationed in Rancho Santa Margarita. We have a beautiful logo. Just look for the logo. Uh, we don't. I don't do Yelp. I do Google,
Yeah.
and those reviews are open and available to anybody to look at, review.
Yeah.
I just don't do Yelp. I don't think that paying for your 5 stars is appropriate.
Yeah.
That said, we're a phone call away,
Yeah.
and we're always available. We're 24/7. I like to let my clients know, if you've got something that's keeping you up at night, just an anxious thought, take the time to give me a call.
Hmm.
Those are the things I prioritize as people's comfort.
What is your phone number?
So I'd love to give you my direct line,
No,
but
don't do that.
let me remind myself of my direct work line, and I will provide that happily. So my direct line is 949-738-0836. Again, it's 949-738-0836. That's my direct line,
Yeah.
24/7 active. It's on. It's next to my bed when I'm asleep. It's at my office when I'm in my office. You can also reach me at Todd at hshrestoration.com. That's TODD at hshrestoration.
Yeah. And the website is hshrestoration.com. Someone really cool built it. It looks nice. I noticed you have a Prime. They are not a sponsor, but if you guys want to sponsor us,
No, it's
give us
hot
a call.
outside. Stay electrolyte. Stay hydrated.
Yeah.
All that good stuff.
Yeah. Be in the Prime physique or whatever. I don't know. All right, man. Well, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on. This episode will be out in a couple weeks.
Right on.
We'll publish it. We'll let you know. We'll link all the, his website, his phone number and stuff. We'll put in the description so you guys can reach out to him if you guys ever need anything or run into any issues. And remember, guys, that everything was impossible till someone did it.
Awesome.